Gear and Beer. Today, my guest is Michael Rinne from Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you for coming, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's been good to hang with you.
Absolutely.
Check out these amazing bases that you brought. I just barely put my hands on each one of them there, and they're delicious.
Thank you.
Absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
We'll be sure to show all the people. Anyone that's listening, you can obviously check us out on YouTube as well. That's probably where the best content is, because you get to see my face, which who doesn't want that? Just binging and purging kind of a situation there.
Great job on the podcast, by the way, bro.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah, I've checked a few out, and
enjoy
it.
I inadvertently stole this title. I didn't do it on purpose, but as soon as he reminded me, I was like, well, of course I stole this from you. There's a guitar player friend of mine back in Texas named Noel Johnston, who used to do actual hangs at his house with, like, you know, pros in the area, and it was called Gear and Beer because he brewed the beer that people drank at these things. I didn't do that. I got us a nice
first time.
A nice German Pilsner.
First time. It's delicious.
You know,
beer and war and machines.
Well, exactly.
Germany's, they got that covered.
They do nice automobiles and delicious beers. Microphones.
Wow.
They really do a lot well, don't they?
Yeah,
they really do a lot well. So you've been sessioning all day.
I've been sessioning all day.
In Berry Hill.
Yep.
Oh, session
playing that
capital.
Country music. Yeah.
Hey, man, somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it.
There's a few people suited better for it than you. I mean,
I appreciate
you brought all the goodies with you and everything, man.
I got my little rack here. It's easy to carry around.
So, okay, I hadn't even really looked at what's going on here yet.
Yeah, I got an API preamp, an early Brent Averill. You know, he was one of the first guys to kind of take cards out of consoles and turn them into 500 modules that people can swap around, and then hit the Pultec EQ. And actually, I hit the compressor first. The gate's double wide, so preamp, compressor, little EQ, just bump a little 70. Goodness.
Well, it sounds amazing in my ears.
Yeah.
You know, as we've talked about on this podcast, it's always the sum of all parts. Like somebody who can play their ass off through some, questionable equipment, still going to sound good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody who can't play that great, that's got some great signal chain and whatever. But the guys like you are doing all the session work, and the guys who can find it both. So
you got to find it.
And
it never evolves, right? I mean, it's never.
Well, I would hope so. Anyway,
you never arrive at any one thing where you're like, oh, this is it. I never have it.
My friends, my musician friends that I feel like are some of the finest in the world. It seems like the ones who are the most capable or at their instruments are the ones that are to this day working more on just furthering their connection to their instrument than anyone else I know. I got a buddy, he's a bass player, his name is Wes Stevenson, lives in Texas, and he'll say some dumb crap when I say this to him, but he truly is like my favorite musician. I just love his whole approach to music. And I mean, he's got a kid and a wife, and he still finds time to shed a couple of hours.
Yeah,
and
impressive.
It is impressive, bro. I have a whole lot of stuff going on, and my microphone sounds weird. I think it's probably just my face. I have a lot of things going on that take a lot of my time, but I was just talking to Aaron earlier. I'm really looking to start compartmentalizing the hours of each day in order to make sure I'm getting attention everywhere that I want to put it.
There's a book called Effortless Mastery.
That book's
by
over
Kenny
here.
Warner.
Or no, actually, it's downstairs on my nightstand. Yeah, Kenny Warner.
Amazing.
I have. It
10 minutes. I mean, if you can get 10 minutes of really focused, really intentional practice.
Totally, man. And that
can do you better than sort of noodling for an hour. Or
100%.
Whatever.
Noodling for an hour is enjoyable, but it is not. Oftentimes, you're fashioning bad habits as opposed to good ones, because like you're just saying, the word intentional, that like intentional practice is that word I think means everything in that context. And there's really no excuse, because again, 10 minutes, everybody's got 10 minutes, bro.
Definitely. Great book though.
It is a great book. I'll put a link to it in the bio. In the comments,
wherever.
I'll put a link to it the same place I always put the links. What do you call that? The description box.
Yeah.
Down there in the YouTubes.
Interwebs.
The interwebs. Shit, I was going to ask you something. So you're from Fort Smith.
From Fort Smith.
How long have you been here?
15 years this year.
Dude,
yeah, man.
Good on you, man.
Thanks.
I waited far too long to come here.
Really? Yeah.
I wish I had come.
Glad you did.
No, same.
Yeah.
I wish I'd come a decade earlier.
It's a good place to land.
It's not something that I even understood was possible until.
You were in Dallas before?
Yeah. So I'm from the Dallas area, Garland, Texas specifically.
A lot of great musicians there.
Dude, jeez. I'm telling you. Do you know Billy Freeman?
I know of him. I don't know him.
So he and I are from the same town. Yeah. We knew each other in high school.
Cool.
And just happened to like we weren't like hanging out buddies, but like we knew of each other. He and the drummer in the band that I was playing with knew each other because Billy took a couple lessons from the guy that my guy took from or whatever. And Billy's one of the few drummers in this world that probably do better on the other side of the chair.
Gotcha.
The teacher as opposed to the student. But
gotcha.
He kind of, when I was 25, we reconnected somehow, and I don't even really remember what happened, but he showed me that there was this whole world where I could earn a living playing my instrument, and that it wasn't just make it with your original band or work at the bank, So,
man, I moved here and went to school. But
Belmont.
I was in a rock band. I went to Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, okay.
Yeah, and I was in a rock and roll band. Guys from high school. We had already toured. We booked tours through MySpace.
That's awesome.
Which was amazing. We hopped in.
That's a super
the
unique tool to have used.
Explore, hitched a van, did the thing. But band, we all moved here, relocated here. We were all in school. Thank God. Thank you, parents, for making us go to school, because the band broke up 6 months after moving here, right? But I was remember my good friend Ben Sanders, who was at Vanderbilt too. I was like, man, what are you doing? What are you going to do with music and your life? And he said, I want to be. He's a fiddle player, and he said, I want to be like Stuart Duncan. I want to be a session musician.
I have no
idea.
Take.
But at the time, you ever remember the first time you heard that phrase? It's like,
totally.
What session? So what does session mean? What is this? What is a session? I don't understand. Like. And then you like we were talking about, get hip to this whole world of, I don't have to be in a band and scream and yell at my friends, and
I can get hired to play in a bar.
Yeah.
I can get hired to play for an artist.
Yeah.
I can get hired to record music. I can be so good at this instrument that people are like, come in and create on your instrument for me, sir or ma'am.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It is, man. And I did some in Texas, and I've done some here. I don't do nearly as much as I would like to. I honestly just don't have the connections. Nobody's. I get fly tracks. I rarely am like going somewhere and tracking, but I enjoy it, and by God, I'm good at it. So
there you go.
Give me a call.
Call this man.
Give me a call, everybody. Hey, everybody, call me.
Call him.
But I love it.
Yeah.
Billy and I on the podcast talked about. He and I, in the pandemic, like, were lucky enough to, he's got a really nice setup at his place. And so he was engineering demo sessions out of there, and I happened to play multiple instruments, and it's kind of a small space. So it was just he and I just in there. Like, again, we would hang out and do that on our own for free and do our own stuff, and much less getting to, like, help somebody reach their vision and earn a living. And
how interesting is it that, like, the more we learn, more we hear stories about these great Beatle records that we all love so much, how much of like that setup was kind of enacted in those records, where Paul would play drums on a song, or George would play drums on a song, or George would play bass, or
There's
whatever.
That's such a special thing, man.
I mean, I'm not comparing anything
totally.
anybody does to the Beatles, but it's not just one. It's it's music, right? It's
exactly.
Not, it's not calculus.
It's not like this is the bass player. He's playing the bass. Yeah. It's like, what does this song need? I have this idea. Somebody hand me a xylophone.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't really work in modern music production, but it sure as shit did back in the 60s. It was what a cool time. I like, I used to have a hang up about just the sometimes lack of fidelity in such old recordings. Sure. I certainly have a love for it these days. But I still find myself drawn to the sonic landscape, if you will, of the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think it's influenced by two things. One, that was kind of like as I was maturing and not only into an adult, but like into a musician.
Totally, man.
And also just the breadth of progressive writing across all genres, from like, Brian White and Winona to the Yellow Jackets and D'Angelo and just like everywhere. It's all crazy, man. And bands like Soundgarden, who I don't know what kind of level of music theory knowledge they have, but they phrase things in six like I've never heard anybody get away with. And it doesn't feel like six. You're just like, oh, this is great. We're rocking out.
Drum sounds on Jeff Buckley records.
Hey,
they're like kind of like, I don't know if they're Thomas and pasty, but they're bright and attacky, but they're so cool. There's something so special about it.
Vibe really comes through, man. It really can come through. I think that's my favorite thing about Beck records.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't, they're so different, record to record, song to song, intro to outro sometimes. Yeah. And you want to talk about just no holds barred. What is it? What's the when Kanye jumped in front of him and everybody was like admonishing him on Twitter? It's like, this MF plays 14 instruments. You gonna tell me he don't deserve this award? And, and it's people don't think about stuff like that. But like he's making a lot. I mean, obviously he's working with JMJ and other people, but he does a lot of that crap himself.
That record that he won Album of the Year on had.
What record was that?
So many musicians. It wasn't Sea Change. It was after Sea Change. What was it called? Phases? Morning Phases?
Morning Phase. Yeah. It was like Morning 2016 or something. 2015
there
maybe?
was full orchestrations on most of that record. Like they cut, they went to wherever in L.A. and cut
That's a
full symphony orchestra.
Record. Oh, they did it in L.A.?
Awesome. I believe so. I don't really know. I would assume so.
I mean, that makes sense. That was back when they... Well, no, that was 2014, 2015.
Sounds
there was not a lot of huge orchestra houses putting stuff out there. There's like Ocean Way in a couple places, and
that always blew me away that they, would have that many.
That's a great record.
Yeah.
My favorite Beck record is Odelay.
Yeah.
And
that's the one that broke it open for him, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess so. Mellow Gold
had a lot of sampling in it, and
that 100%. But like also live instrumentations, and like it was just way more all over the place. It was more like authentic to him.
Beck, genius.
Cheers to Beck.
Cheers to Beck.
He is a fucking genius, and you can say any curse words that you want to. I just
appreciate it.
We hadn't said one yet, and so if I don't have to put the explicit thing on there, I'm not going to.
There you go.
If somebody knocks a door down, though, I'm gonna come barreling through behind them. Sorry, Mom. Love you. Oh, excuse me. I sip superlatively. Okay, so you got the lunchbox, and then you were. Tell me, you built this.
Yeah, I had this built. I didn't build it myself, but I've been sourcing these transformers. So this is a Motown DI, a wolf box is also what it's called. You find them readily available by a company named Acme. Makes the green ones, right? It's the same design. But it's a great read if you just Google.
But they don't use these transformers anymore.
No. They just
the
find
old ones, vintage Acme?
Maybe they're different colors or something, but most of the green Acmes don't.
Okay.
They have like a Jensen transformer, some which are still
Isn't
great.
there like a gray one?
I know some
or
of the gray
wolf
ones.
Box?
That would be a wolf box, which is the same thing.
Okay.
So Ed Wolfson, who was an engineer in Motown, who built the first, they needed inputs, right?
Right.
At these tracking sessions where they would have strings and vocalists and everybody in the room, right? Horns. He needed a way to plug, 2 or 3 guitar players in the bass and Jamerson
right
into the console. So he created a DI that was 4 channels. It's still still in that Hitsville. I haven't toured, but when you walk down the stairs, if you see pictures right to the left, there's 4 quarter-inch inputs. So he sourced these transformers that are Triad A11J or A12J. Got to do that after I say that.
No, man.
And he found that his theory is that it's this metal called molybdenum or something. I don't know how to say it, but they used to mine it. They don't mine it anymore because it's like super dangerous to mine.
What's the shit from Avatar? Unobtainium? Is that what it's made out of?
Yes, exactly. It's kryptonite. I don't know what it is, or it's the opposite of kryptonite.
I'm sorry. I was going to die if I couldn't come up with that. Please continue.
So he started making those Motown DIs with Acme, and they were real careful to, heed his sort of instructions. And then at some point, they got more concerned with profit, as companies need to do.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find all these old transformers.
Oh, so were they vintage then when they were making them?
At the first, he was pretty adamant about if you can't get these transformers,
certain specs,
they just got to be the transformers. That's it. That's the name of the game. So now I have to find them from random sources, eBay, Craigslist, wherever. They're hard to find because also the Spectrasonic 610 compressor and all these there's other audio units that use them. So a lot of engineers kind of try to hoard them.
Searching for them. Just like trying to find a rare bottle of bourbon.
I have a green, yes, exactly. It's like Blanton's, right? When you put a green one next to this, it's not. There's no comparison to my ears. So because I have a green one too, so I've been finding these and selling them. So reach out to hit me up in the DMs if you're
I'm going to reach out. Yeah,
if you want one, man.
I like the green one. I like that one better.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't get to side by side it, but.
And here's the deal that I've had a lot of great DIs, and there's so many amazing
bunch of great stuff
DIs out there, right?
100%.
And what I've found, as far as functionality and workflow, is that a lot of these great tube DIs sound incredible when you're by yourself, right? And you're just playing at home. You're like, man, I got
this wall of sound.
I got this tubey warmth and butteriness to my tone with this DI. I love it, right? And then I was actually on a session, and a buddy, the drummer friend, we went in to listen to the song, and I was using one of these really fancy tube DIs, and he leaned over to me and said, "Did you play on this song?" And I was like, "I did." I'm sitting there, and I was like,
just lost in the mix.
I did, but I can't hear it. I can't hear myself, And so that's and part of that's in a way, like if you think about that tubey tone, right? What are you going back to? You're going back to like Motown, right?
Sure.
In your mind, right? Or you're going back to like 6 retro, vintagey, fat bass. Well, what are the guitar players doing on 95% of music recorded before rock and roll, and even
doubling
60s and 70s rock and roll? They're up high or they're thinned. If they are playing low, they're thin, right? Yeah. Clean tone down there, and then they're playing parts and solos, right? So the bass had all this space to take over, right?
Sure.
And what I find in 95% of sessions I do is there's no minimum of 3 electric guitar passes. If there's not already 2 electric guitar players on the session who are both putting down 2 to 4 tracks apiece.
Yeah.
Doesn't leave us much room, bud, down there in the low end. So if we're not cutting and we don't have mid-range, I'm going to walk in the control room and the drummer's going to look at me and say, "Hey, did you play on this song?" And that's when a light bulb went off for me, and I was like, man, I got to cut, and part of that's, digging, in your hands. But the other part of that is like, all right, I knew, like live country, man, it's hard to beat a countryman, you know? Because they got that mid-range.
Right?
I have a silver countryman, and nothing's beat it, and it's never knock on some wood somewhere. It's never broke.
There's got to be some somewhere.
It's never broken on tour.
Well,
and I've had so many DIs crap out, and you're there, and you're at sound check. You got nobody wants to spend time on the bass.
Yeah.
So
the bass,
having something reliable is really important, but also functional, right? And cutting.
Well,
now, if you're doing your solo
live,
bass record, freaking tube it up and
no doubt
butter it up.
Or if you're playing, if you're doing a session where there's not 74 guitar tracks,
exactly,
and there's some like sonic.
Totally, and there's certainly songs
like the Kramer lanes on the highway in Seinfeld. If you get a song like that with the double wides, get a little space, move around. Oh, these lanes are so comfy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go. I took it to Seinfeld. I apologize.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like when George is getting dumped and she says it's not you, it's me, and he says, no, you can't do that. It's my line. That's my line. I created that line. I coined it's not you, it's me. You can't say that to me. Well, bass players need to be heard, right?
Man.
Or we want to be heard at least. And getting there is a lot more challenging than
it. If you can't hear the bass, you're missing half of the groove.
Yeah.
That's arguably one. It comes from the guts of any groove comes from either the drums or the bass. There are special circumstances where maybe it's a keyboard thing, but you can even argue then, and like a tune like, let's just take Superstition. That's the first one that pops in mind. That's a very rhythmic keyboard part that's 100% contributing to the groove, but also the Stevie drums on that are slopping everything.
They're electric though.
Don't even matter, man, because
energy
feels so right.
Yeah.
It feels. Oh, I see.
I mean, it's electric. It's just not electric drums.
I don't think so, but I'm not going to argue that because I don't know.
His playing is electric. Yeah,
it feels right. So both of those things. Now it's almost like it's like blood harmony when you're grooving with yourself, I guess. But that's a kind of an interesting thing I haven't really thought about much. But my original point was, depending on the song, the forward motion usually comes from drums or from bass.
Yeah.
For my 2 cents. And if you can't hear the bass, how do you know?
Right.
How do you know how it really feels?
Yeah.
And something that people don't really consider, and often enough, I think, and it's like people definitely are around here in a professional level anyway, in a studio, most people are considering things like that and knowing how to sit in a space, and that's why people are calling them in the first place. But it's just as true live, like and playing guitar primarily and bass. It's like, I'm going to play the bass a lot differently with guitar and drums and vocals than I'm going to play the bass with guitar and acoustic guitar and piano.
Truth.
It's a totally different thing. Just like I'm going to play guitar way differently if there's a piano or an acoustic guitar or both. And just being able, we come back to ears and having big ears, as the term goes, and that's the one thing that you can't teach, I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe you can.
I think you can get knocked over the head, and then you go, why'd I just get knocked over the head? Okay. Oh, I'm not listening. And then maybe you start to.
I play with a bunch of people who never realize that they're just bleeding out and they don't even know that they're injured. It's like, hey man, ship's going down. Plug that hole while you're standing over there.
Yeah. Here's a stick to put in your mouth because it's gonna hurt. And we're not near a hospital. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I keep having to check the timer. We're rolling without an engineer today, so the engineer.
You are the engineer.
Hey, everybody.
You're looking at him.
I'm intern at best.
You're Alpha, Omega.
The Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and it. Sorry. So we discussed the Michael Rinne sourced wolf boxes.
This is it.
And
hit me up.
You talked.
I'm not trying to make money off them. I'm trying to sell them and make a little bit for my time, but it's not,
Well, I definitely, we'll talk about that afterwards.
Yeah.
But we also have some pedal board stuff over here, and you brought some amazing basses.
Yeah, let's check them out.
I recognize all but the was that a...
The Lely?
Yeah, what is it, an
Lely
overdrive?
Enhanced Overdrive. They stopped making these. I think Lely was like partnering with someone, and then something happened because they stopped making like the bass switch, and I don't know. But I found this, and because for upright, I have a bass switch, the Lely bass switch, which is like a 3-knob thing that I love. I saw Victor Krause using years ago and got one, and I've toured with it.
Just for live, for switching back and forth different inputs,
but also just as kind of a DI for upright.
Oh, I see.
Really,
okay. Just got
really
a nice sounding circuit or whatever.
With Mark O'Connor with that, with Emmylou Harris, Rodney Crowell. Anytime I was like touring with upright, and now with Miranda, I have that as well. And so they make this overdrive, and I was like, man, I need to check that out because they just make great stuff. This volume pedal is, I mean, I know that's kind of lame to spend money on a volume pedal, right? It's like the last thing you want to spend money on, but
there's a lot of things that you need that you don't want to spend money on.
And when I'm tuning, I can not annoy everyone in the room.
So your tuner doesn't mute?
It does, but I don't know of a tuner. Maybe you do. I don't know of a tuner that doesn't click when you turn it on and off, right? Or that, and I'm not talking click like in the room. I mean through the signal, like. You hear a little.
Well, that one definitely does, but
right. And to me, it's like, man, I don't want to like. It's kind of when it's kind of part of like being a little bit transparent in the room when you're in that creative space. I want to be, I want to contribute musically, but not be like making a bunch of noise otherwise. So, and they also say there's this saying that you should never have your tuner in line. You heard that?
Sure, I guess but it really just depends on what that buffer sounds like.
Tone suck or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think it just depends on the quality of the components.
Yeah,
I can't imagine like a Peterson having crappy components in it and sounding bad.
No,
but a lot of people do run it that way.
A lot of people say that. I love the strobe because I grew up playing upright too, so feel pretty honed in on intonation. And man, I mean, I probably have the screwdrivers out and the Allen wrenches out every other session at least. Even though I'm playing these basses every day.
Different environments,
things move.
Man.
Different environments.
Wood and metal
move and like
expands and contracts.
you got to be in tune.
Deer and beer.
And you say they don't make that anymore?
Not new, I don't think. You got to find a used one.
Sounds great, man.
It's like it's a lot gnarlier than say the Porkloin, which is really a soft clip injection. So Porkloin's more for some grit.
Yeah.
So without it, so it's subtle, right?
And this has got flats on it.
Yep. Here's both.
Fat and angry, bro. Sounds great.
Yeah, shout out to the man Roger Sadowski for making some really incredible instruments.
Both of these basses speak not just acoustically.
I got this 2019 had it made. It took they take a year. You got to order it and it takes a year, but man, is it worth it. It's simply like, I've heard people describe it as like a old Fender that's a Cadillac, right? It's just even, well constructed.
Yeah.
And it just, they speak,
especially that 5-string. That 5-string is like,
yeah,
it's
pull that one out.
Yeah, it's some super airy wood. Do you play the 5 out on the road?
I don't.
I'm sure Boo would have complained about it.
Yeah, he would have. Shout out to Boo Massey.
Yeah, shout out to Boo Massey and his dumbass opinion about 5-string basses. I just never understood why more bass on a bass is bad.
Well, I know, and it's a thing, right? It's like a thing people
It's an old person's thing.
I don't know, man. I think it's a hipster thing, though, too, or just, and maybe I'm a hipster, I don't know. But people love to bash the 5-string bass, right? But you know what's interesting is
what makes someone a hipster these days?
Hang on. 90s country. We were talking about 90s, right? It's coming back, right? I mean, we've been playing Goodbye Earl out on the road, and
really,
90s people are freaking out about 90s country again, which is amazing. I love it. It's so great. There's a lot of 5-string bass.
No doubt.
On some 90s. I mean,
a lot of it.
So it's. Yeah.
I like the way that action is on that bass too. Got to work just a little bit. I think that's great.
Love it. And, for the longest time, I always played Sadowski's with the preamp off, like not active. But you just pull that out, right?
There's no noticeable level difference.
Not crazy, because I don't go crazy when I do put it in. But lately I've been pumping it up just to kind of get that.
It's like a little extra mid-saturation.
Modern, like, so much hard rock is coming into play in mainstream country, which I love. Hardy,
100%.
And even Morgan Wallen's stuff, and all those guys. Like, it's hard, right?
Totally.
You got to have something that's gonna be
the,
down there and growl and still speak, right?
Yeah, I'll be worried when we get to the monkey from Korn bass sounds again.
Yeah, that would be weird.
But I love overdrive, and like something that I hadn't considered before, and this has been at least a decade ago now. But the first time I saw Jerry Flowers play, and I was hanging out. Behind, I was hanging. I wasn't, nobody's allowed to be out there while they're sound checking or whatever. But I was standing somewhere where I could hear, and he definitely had overdrive on his bass all night long. And you know what you could hear anywhere in the shed, the bass, and it was awesome.
Yes.
And that was where I was. That made me be like, oh, okay. Because I'm behind the bar when it comes to bass. I play guitar for my whole life. Played bass for 10 years.
But
I am when it comes to figuring it out.
Fantastic.
If I ever sound good, it's because I'm not afraid to push faders and turn knobs until it sounds like I want it to sound.
Let me ask you this: like, how many guitar parts have you played that are drop D?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Right. So anybody wants to knock the 5-string, you got to play a D, right? And some people do the hip shot, but the other thing I do a lot, and I do it on the road, I have 2 main P basses. Well, I have a Gibson that I've been playing a lot that I love.
Is it a Ripper?
No, it's a Les Paul Signature.
Oh, okay.
75. They only made like 1,000 of them or something. It basically looks like a cross between a Gold Top and a Les Paul and a 335 kind of.
Interesting.
It's really cool. It's kind of what the Jack Cassidy is.
Oh, okay.
Was based on. I don't know if Jack Cassidy's original was a
it might have been. I'd also
Les Paul Signature or not, but Les Paul Signature is a great bass.
That's dope.
But what I've been doing on the road, and I started doing it a few years ago in the studio, is keeping, a bass tune down a whole step all the time, right? And when I first started doing it, I would detune and tune up and detune, and that just is going to cause you problems.
You better say that's bad on the guitar.
It's bad on the guitar. It's bad on you because you're just, even when you're in tune, you're second guessing yourself, right? So if you can spare a P bass to tune to
presumably
D,
you adjust the gauges so that it feels like you want it to feel.
I mean,
no.
String. You talking about like different strings? No, man. I mean, just
you used to playing
half
it
the
that
Miranda
way.
set is a Russ Paul P bass that's tuned down to D, labella flats, and man, that thing. And you gotta tweak it. You gotta play with the setup, which I also recommend everyone to. I mean, there's a thing to be said for going taking your stuff and paying somebody, but you should be actively, as we're talking about practicing, you should be actively like tweaking and going, what would it be like if I raised my action a little bit?
Well, and
what would it be like if I
people
lowered
that don't know how to do that, and you should be able to. You need to know how to do that. It's not.
It's on the interweb.
Yeah, it's about to say at this point, there's no real excuse for out of maintenance equipment. It's like take care of your stuff.
Take some time.
I actually have a couple of the guitars that I have that need maintenance like that. Like I don't play them.
Yeah.
Until they're going to get fixed, because what's the point?
Right.
I see that a lot.
So anyway, all that to say, man, and you got to learn. You got to know numbers, which most guys in Nashville know anyway. And even when I say that to some people, they go, I can't. Yeah, that's just weird, right? Thinking about because with Miranda, Kerosene, one of her very popular songs, right? It's in it's in D, but I'm playing an E in my mind. See, I already screwed it up. Because I'm playing that tune down. Man, I got that big, fat, open bottom string, that big open D, and I'm not playing a 5-string. And it's a different thing. I'll say this too: the tension on a B string is between a string like that. That tension with that length. That's just physics, right? The length of this string at a B. And the tension there is different, right?
Totally.
So, it's another. I'm a big advocate of having a bass tuned at least a whole step down. Some, I know some guys keep a bass tuned in C sharp. Tried that a few times. It's all right, but it can get a little.
I've been thinking about just going B-E-A-D.
That's a thing too. I just wonder.
You would have to mess with the gauges.
Yeah, at that point, you got to look at some thicker strings, or your bridge might get. I mean, a lot of my basses, the bottom string saddle is right up against the back because it's as long. Because I play high action.
Wow, and I appreciate that about you.
And dig, and it just, it gets. So I'll show you my P bass named Karen. I never told you her name's Karen. I'm trying to. The previous owner of my P bass was named Karen.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, are you trying to say it's a basic bitch?
Trying to give Karen a good name.
Are you about to say Karen needs a pumpkin spice latte? Or?
This is Karen. My girlfriend hates her. Rachel hates her because it's my 1960 P. I'm so fortunate to have gotten on eBay. It was labeled 1960 Fender Precision BASE. No shit. They didn't write bass. They didn't write BASS. So I think it just kind of didn't go through some search engines. It was a 2-week auction, and it was the only way I was able to buy it because it would have been twice the price.
No doubt.
So I lucked out for real last year. But yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Look at that saddle there. That's
wow.
It's backed up. I don't know if I should.
Now I want to look at mine. It'll be out of focus, but it'll work. Actually, yeah, stick it down on your pedal board. That'll work.
Just to show the folks,
That's what I've got the thing over the cover on my bridge. I put the cover on the bridge a while back, and I just love the way it looks, so I left it on there. But you can't. I don't know what the saddles are doing. And these are nickel strings, right? Is that right?
Yeah, labella. I use labella flats, labella nickel.
I love labella strings.
They're so
labella
good.
steels on my 5-string. The only reason that there's Dunlops on that P is because my buddy Wes was like, "Hey man, try these." And I put them on there, and I liked them. And I just never. It's
great.
I don't change steels. They don't.
Great.
I don't have I don't have Boomassey hands, so my strings are good. And it's a different thing on bass anyway, with the way steel strings work. Steel strings come out of the box too bright.
I go through rounds quicker than flats. Flats you can leave on.
I've got some old flats.
And some people are like, I don't have any old. Some people are like, man, I haven't changed the bass strings. Like,
I'm that guy.
40 years or whatever, older guys. But
yeah, I'm not that guy.
But yeah, I think 6 months you should probably change your strings. A year. I might be in a small minority there.
I would agree if they were causing me any kind of trouble.
Yeah,
but
there's definitely a life. There's definitely a life to some new strings after you break them in, dude.
Cool. Play this one.
Okay.
Because these are fucking old strings. I'm going to pick this plant up off the floor. They're pretty dead, but they have top end still somehow.
Yeah. Can't help but do that on a jazz bass.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, that's sweet, man.
Those strings do sound kind of dead.
They sound dead. Yeah, in a nice way, you know.
Yeah, I don't hate it though, because too bright sucks.
Right.
It usually takes a solid 5 to 10 gigs for me.
Yeah.
Other people, strings break in way more quickly, and it's not because I don't play hard, because I do play hard.
Yeah.
My hands don't do stuff or whatever. You don't have to keep holding that. I just wanted to hear through your rig and see if the deadness came through, and it did. But see, this thing's kind of a boat anchor. It's pretty heavy compared to your 5-string.
I think there's a little bit of just to be said for light basses. You know, when people talk about vintage basses, man, this P bass I found so light. This one's really light.
My P bass is exceptionally light.
Yeah,
in my
and
opinion.
There's something to that. You know, it's kind of the opposite of what you think, right? You think heavy sound, want some weight.
That just comes from so many people that own Les Pauls, and they're just like, oh, heavy guitar sound.
Yeah.
I was like, no, bro. Most Les Pauls don't sound good.
And those old tellies are like you could,
they're
throw them across the room.
I've only played a couple, but I don't remember them being especially heavy. I've been really fortunate, and with the exception of that 5-string bass, I have some really light instruments.
Nice.
Which is great because I already, because I still play downtown a fair amount, and that's a long time to be standing with instruments strapped around your shoulder, and it'll straight up cause you some physical maladies, So it becomes important. Footwear, posture.
Definitely. Yeah.
Boo and I were talking about this. He was just here the other day, and I sit with better posture than I used to, and I focus on the posture that I sit with and then I stand with, because I do experience back problems. But I'll put a guitar on or a bass on, and then I'll notice, and I'm like...
Just immediately, yeah.
And I'm just destroying everything that I had going. And then guess what? My back starts to hurt, and right in between my shoulder blades.
Oh, man. It's the worst.
It's like that.
When we started tour, it always, the rehearsals get you, and then... Just, nothing bad. I'm not trying to, complain about my sweet life.
It's not a complaint. It's
very grateful, but it is a thing you gotta.
Yeah, it's something that you have to plan for, and you have to take care of. You got to make sure you're stretching properly, and something that's really difficult for musicians is just limiting inflammation causing things. Yeah, and on the road, you oftentimes you're subject to catering. There are circumstances like one of the guys in your band where you just you have a thing and you bring your own food, and you're always in control of a thing like that. But that takes a lot of work too, man. That takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Being on stage for 90 minutes and being king of the world and whatever, great. That's what people see. They don't see the group, the 24 hours in a bus or a van or an airport. And B.B. King famously said, "You don't pay me for the 2 hours on stage. You pay me for the other 22."
Yes, exactly.
No doubt, dude.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So you guys are pretty much done for the year.
Yeah, we wrapped in Buffalo last weekend. It was a blast. We started around July 4th, which was, I think, fortunate for us because we kind of we weren't the first people out on the field.
Sure.
In the line of fire.
Yeah.
With our current world situation. And we weren't now facing the fall, which is where I feel like the holidays is just going to get worse as people travel, unfortunately. And, things hopefully don't shut down at all, but could
I sure hope not.
Potentially become more restricted or whatever. So we hit it at a great time. And
that's true.
Played about 25, 27 shows, and
y'all were at it.
It was every weekend since July 4th, which it's the end of September now.
I don't even know what day it is, man.
Yeah,
my brain.
Yeah.
I have devices to keep track of what day and time it is.
Nice.
That's helpful.
You gotta do.
I don't have to look at the sun and my stone tablet calendar.
Yeah.
Thankfully, can you even remember what it was like before all of these organizational things? Because I
do. Yeah. I mean, I remember getting my
You're
first
not as old
cell
as I
phone,
am,
like maybe senior year of high school. I got a cell phone or something like that. I mean, I did it. All my friends had one before I got one.
Also same.
But yeah. But even when but also, it really, I feel like the iPhone was kind of when we all became zombies, right? I mean, like the first, flip phones and the Razor and stuff. You weren't.
It's like, yeah, you
might have played one of those games.
The snake
game. Yeah, you might play one game for like 5 minutes and be like, all right, this is boring. I'm going to do something else.
Gold screen with black dots on it.
Texting wasn't even, I remember like.
Yeah, to print. You want to see, bro, you got to hit that number 2, 3 times.
T9, is that what they called it?
Yeah, T9 texting.
I mean, so even though I feel like we are of the cell phone generation, but we're probably the last folks who are going to know what it's like without.
Yeah, we're definitely
anyone younger than us.
The crossover group.
You didn't have a cell phone in 6th grade? What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, it's like, how did you talk to your
friends?
Were
you on food stamps? Yeah.
No, they don't know what food stamps.
Yeah. I got an iPhone 13 when I was in 6th grade.
Freaking iPhones! I'm a recent Apple begrudging convert.
Right? They got it. They got the number, don't they?
Well, they do some things very, very well, and those things are very conducive to the kind of work we do. Otherwise, there's a lot of things about Android that I like better.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be somebody that does something better, right. But it's pretty functional, especially if you're, podcasting, and I can bounce stuff back and forth. Not that you can't do that with an Android and like an up-to-date PC these days, but they're like certainly slower around that curve of just the connectability of sharing the data.
First gig in Nashville. First gig, I'm in college. Some rich people's cocktail party playing background music, right?
Been
Sweet
there.
Kelly Cox, my friend's Kelly Cox. Shout out to her. I doubt she'll watch this, but if she does,
hi Kelly.
Shout out to her.
Shout out
great,
to you.
Amazing pianist. Hired me for this gig. I think I was 18 years old. Drove an '89 Toyota Camry station wagon.
Hell yeah.
Printed out directions to this home
from MapQuest.
On MapQuest.com. Yeah. 3 pages. Went to Vanderbilt, so I'm like living in the dorms there, getting my car, plenty of time, downbeats at 6 or something. I'm like leaving at 4:15 or something, giving myself plenty of time. The address is Old Hickory Boulevard. Now, if you're familiar with Nashville, you know that Old Hickory Boulevard is a big old circle that turns into a lot of other things, right?
Yes. And then back into
Old Hickory. So I'm in my
brutal.
I got half my suit on, right? Half of it's hanging up, black pants, So like kind of nervous, but like excited that I'm like, they're gonna pay me like
you're about to
pay me
$125
to go play jazz for 3 hours or whatever, and I'm driving, and literally I'm like looking at the directions, and I keep getting lost, and I didn't want to call Kelly because I was nervous. I was like, don't call her because she'll start freaking out, or like be nervous I'm not going to show up because it's getting at this point, man. I'm just like driving around, and I'm on Old Hickory, but then it turns into something else, and I don't know. I hit water, man. I mean, I hit a river, and I was north of Nashville somewhere, probably like south of White House, probably like, I don't even know at this point.
If you're in Old Hickory and you hit a river, you're in Old Hickory.
I think maybe I was in Old Hickory. And the house was in Brentwood. And so
those are not
all the guests were there, and I dragged my upright bass into this nice, very fancy home in Brentwood 15 minutes after we were supposed to start playing.
Did you do the
anyway
Arrested Development shame walk?
I should have. Yeah. It's more like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music was playing when I walked in. Yeah. But anyway, if I had an iPhone 13 at the time, might not have
you would have driven through a few neighborhoods to get there, but you'd have gotten there.
Exactly.
You'd have taken some roads that there's no reason you should have ever driven down, but you'd have gotten there.
Yeah.
We're okay over there. What's I going to ask you, man? I have some questions for you, but I seem to have left my phone over there.
Oh, go get it.
You are listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Want to take your home cooking to the next level? Need new recipe ideas or meal inspiration? Like, follow, and subscribe to Bobby Jam's Kitchen on YouTube and Instagram. At Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Cook your food and eat it.
So, people told me that I should do fun questions.
Okay.
It's yet to be determined whether these are fun or not, but questions they are.
Let's hear it.
I should probably pull them up. That will make it better. So, one of my favorite ones, which it's certainly not controversy is the word that I'm thinking of, but that's not the right word, as cause for much debate is, and there are no wrong answers or right answers. This is just off the top of your – they're impossible questions often.
Great.
So, the first one is simply Metallica or Megadeth? It's a weird question for Nashville, Tennessee.
I'll probably not lose friends, but some friends will have conversations with me, but Megadeth. Yeah.
I honestly, it's a coin toss for me, but I think 51 out of 100 times it lands on Megadeth for me.
I mean, the system has failed us. That's Jimmy Lee Sloas on bass.
You know who else is playing on that? Vinny Colaiuta.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's hard to.
I didn't realize that was Sloas.
It's Sloas.
Makes sense because he'd been tracking everything. He's lived here for how long? Like 15 years or something.
Oh, a long time. No, probably. How long has Sloas lived here?
No, I mean Dave Mustaine. He relocated here a long time ago.
Right. That sounds right.
Because they were rehearsing sound check 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Right. When they fired Dave Ellefson, I was trying real hard.
Hang on though, I think Metallica's kind of in its popularity sets it apart from a lot of
Metallica's untouchable
from a lot of metal, right?
From a numbers standpoint,
we'll give them
for sure.
But of all of everything else, in that world, I feel like Dave Mustaine writes songs.
He is
right.
He's prolific and
he writes songs that you can, even if that the tonality and the production is something you've never gotten into, you still hear I still hear the stories in his records, in his writing, man. Which I respect. It's not just goblins and demons.
Sure, it's political music, which is kind of the birth of metal, right?
Yeah.
It's politically
and it's connected to punk and it's connected to
100%.
Rock and roll, and
the fifth episode of this podcast, my buddy Mark Letary was on here, and we were talking about subgenre. Excuse me, and I was talking about classifying Metallica and Megadeth into subgenre because that wasn't something that really existed then, and since then I've figured out that definitely thrash is what you would call that.
Yeah.
But the reason that I had such problem with that was the creative arc of both of those bands went far, far outside any boundaries of thrash metal.
Totally.
But first two Metallica records, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, thrash records. The first three Megadeth records, Peace Cells, whatever the ones that they're all the similar titles like that. Just straight up thrash records, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Except for I was thinking Black Album and Justice for All, Euthanasia, Countdown to Extinction, System Has Failed.
Yeah.
That's not thrash metal. That's something else. What do you call that? I don't know. Why do we have to put a label on every different kind of metal song? Can we not just say it's
a little bit Dolly, isn't it? It's a little bit surrealist.
Yeah.
A little bit Dada. It's a little bit like 1920s, like the Industrial Revolution. Like, we don't know what to do with this, right? So we're going to do this, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to write about this. And to me, like, the early metal feels that it has that brash.
There's a rawness
and freshness too. It's like it's never been. Nobody had ever like made a guitar sound like.
It was like sonic.
Right?
It was sonic aggression like never before. It's like the angst music didn't manifest itself in such a like angry sonic kind of a thing, but like still definitely nuanced to what they're doing. And you know, you look at a song like "Fade to Black" by Metallica. It's like real thrashy, real metally, acoustic guitar, also really beautiful melodies and electric guitars essentially simulating like string parts with the really long legato and super compressed overdrive sounds.
Yeah. And I mean, Clifford Burton, come on,
dude.
Still,
you're 100% right.
I've never I've never done the deep dive in him playing wise. I've just just sonically just been a listener and a fan of his.
It's cool, dude. Anesthesia,
prowess,
pulling teeth. It's like
incredible.
became old hat because everybody was like, when you're coming up, it's like, oh, bro, it's the best bass solo. He's the best bass player ever. It's like, meanwhile, these people never heard of Jocko or
who's Trujillo's guy, right?
Totally.
Please forgive me if I mispronounced that.
You did. That's okay.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You're speaking of Robert Trujillo. I'm from Texas.
All right.
And I once spoke fluent what most people would call restaurant Spanish when I was younger. I don't have that anymore, but I can still go to a Spanish-speaking country and I'll be okay.
Get around.
But like, I'm gonna have to say what a bunch of times.
Yep.
Anyway, I digress. So my next question is jazz or metal?
Well,
another arbitrary
I'm going to
question.
be really opinionated on that one because my dad was a jazz musician.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. He went to University of Miami in the early 70s. Pat Metheny was in his freshman theory class with him, sitting next to him, and then in the fall and then the spring, Pat Metheny was teaching guitar.
Of course.
At University of Miami before he went to Berkeley. So my mom and dad met in University of Miami at this kind of crazy time of Jocko was around and, all these people.
They were in the middle of a moment.
Around. Yeah, it was a moment.
Realize it or not.
It was pretty cool,
Yeah.
And and also
that's real cool.
That Ken Burns talking about the 90s and growing up and that documentary of jazz, which I believe came out either late 90s or early 2000s.
It was late 90s.
There's a quote in there where the three greatest American contributions to Western civilization are baseball, the Constitution, and jazz. And
one of the truly American art forms, they always say.
You can't really argue that, in my opinion.
Everybody. Let me stop there and walk that back. A lot of people, when I first moved here, were saying, "Man, I'd be careful about advertising that you like jazz or you play jazz," and that's
for sure.
Producers aren't going to call you. And I've had producers tell me that too. But I don't think that that's true.
anymore. I feel like it's or
maybe it was a taboo thing 6, 7, 8 years ago because I've been here almost 8 years, 7 years, and
well, I think there's a difference between
I'm not your typical
what you want to do
either.
too. Yeah, like I mean, if you're out, I'm not out playing jazz gigs. You know what I mean? Like I
play like 1 or 2 a month.
I don't really go. Yeah, great. I don't really go. I used to a lot. I mean, I made that was like part of a substantial part of my income was playing so many like
cocktail
rich
gigs
people,
and stuff.
parties and corporate events and brunch gigs.
You ever do like
oh my god
the cruise ship thing?
I never did. I got a couple offers.
That sounds like a personal hell.
But it yeah.
Claustrophobia is the only thing I could think of.
Couldn't do it. I don't see an end. Like when you start on something like that, I didn't see an end. I didn't see getting off the ship.
Well,
I just fast forwarded to me at 60 years old with a large belly and alcoholism and
see, all I could see is
no family,
me getting on the ship,
depression.
and then only thing I could think of is how can I get off of here?
Yeah.
I am suffocating with claustrophobia.
Food. I mean, there's probably good food for the guests, but they're not going to give you good food.
I think I've heard mixed reviews. I think it just really depends on the outfit.
Yeah.
So they took care of musicians, some didn't. That's true for a
all
lot
I
of
have
places.
to say, I'm a fan of jazz to this day, and I appreciate it in my musical upbringing and knowledge of it and my record collection of it. You know,
Totally.
And obviously, and when there's somebody great in town, I want to go see them. And
I feel like I'm having this. I'm like stream of consciousness, which is not unusual for me, but it's almost like I think I would have to go with jazz personally, just because there is so much more room. How can I say this? There's metal seems like the parameters are a lot more rigid. It didn't seem like that. The parameters of metal are a lot more rigid, similar to any kind of classical music set aside from a solo instrument, piano fugue or clavichord fugue or something where, you know, it was essentially for improv.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like the only devices where improv was welcome at all was in the fugue, really.
Yeah.
And jazz, it's all about like how out of the way can you get from the song in your brain to the instrument, like you know what I mean?
And I'd also say that continuing that American sort of line, you know, of Tin Pan Alley and those songs, those standard,
the American Great American Songbook
was kind of like, I mean, that informed a lot of, you know, of country publishers and Acuff Rose and the beginnings of what we consider classic country music too, was that sort of engine of, you know, songwriters who show up. Willie Nelson was a songwriter who show up in a suit and tie and every day and write a song and turn it in and hope to get somebody, you know, before he was an artist. So it's like,
and they're still doing that shit down there.
Oh my God, it's
a little different.
Us all, I mean,
a little different.
In a way, it's still the
it's the same principles.
What allows us all to do the things we talked about earlier.
Absolutely,
make a living playing music. So,
are you a Cocaine and Rhinestones guy?
I've listened to a few episodes. I've heard it's great. Yeah, I've heard he can be really, you know, he can push some buttons with his hard lines of opinion. I've heard that, but I haven't listened to a lot of it.
I've heard people say that too, but I think that is a reference to his Twitter account.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Where he apparently voices a lot of opinions. The podcast is not.
People don't go on Twitter to say, "I'm going to make everybody happy." Nobody goes on Twitter and says, "This is everybody's going to love this tweet."
That's your soapbox. So you opine there freely. Go right ahead.
Yep.
But his podcast is he maintains, and it seems to me like he's just trying to figure out what the story is, and he doesn't care how that.
I love that.
Makes him feel, or how that's going to make anyone else feel. If the real story is going to piss people off, he's still going to tell the real story for the sake of the real story. It's almost like, you know, doing the news because, by God, it's the news, and it's not my opinion, it's the news. And
shout out to Shoot 'Em Straight, Midland, the band Midland.
Yeah.
They do a great podcast called Shoot 'Em Straight, which is
really
co-written with my buddy Skylar Wilson, Travis Nicholson. It's a great podcast. They've already had one season come out. Second season's about to come out.
I'm going to check that out.
And they found
I played golf with Jeff.
interesting stories that,
He's not core, but...
Yeah, they find interesting stories that, are kind of lore, country music lore, like Tanya Tucker getting booed off the Opry stage.
Yeah.
The songwriter, I can't remember his name right now, who wrote Friends in Low Places, writes the song to settle a bar tab. And they dive deep and figure out, all right, is the story true? What parts of it are true?
What's bullshit? What isn't?
It's great, man. It's a
great
listen.
That's great. I have to unlock my phone. Excuse me here. Okay, so this is, I'm going to ask you, but it's not one of my favorite questions. Buffer or true bypass?
I don't know what those mean. And I'm an audio, a self-proclaimed audio nerd. What does that mean? Meaning, like in your pedal board?
Yes.
What are you referencing? Your pedal board?
Yeah, so that's the argument, from what I understand, was that true bypass doesn't color your signal like a buffer does.
Okay.
But I think that
buffer refers to like a computer chip component or something in the pedal?
Yeah, like for instance, like that particular Korg pedal has a buffer that people find desirable for color. It's a good sounding buffer. 2
is true bypass.
I think it's buffered as well.
Wow.
I think everything on that board except for the Justin Butler rehoused Nobles is a buffered. I mean the DIs are.
I'll answer the question this way. Done a few records. Been fortunate enough to do a few records with Ray Kennedy, who produced Cartwheels on a Gravel Road, Lucinda Williams, a lot of great music. And I was on the session. I watched him working on a tone with the guitar player, and the guitar player already was like super retro, like great sounding little blackface Princeton and very small pedal board. But there was we were in an old studio and there's a little bit of noise that was undesirable, and I watched Ray say, "Can I try something for a second?" to the guitarist. And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And he took the cable out of the pedal board,
plugged it in the amp,
and plugged it in the amp. And that's how I'll answer that question. It's like, I think if you're going to go into pedals, which I do all the time, you've already kind of committed to a minutia of degradation, right? Same with if somebody were going to say you can only great records are recorded in analog.
Every connection point right? is a potential for degradation.
Most analog studios still have a Pro Tools rig in the closet that's going red.
Of course.
So,
as Boo Massey once told me, I'm not plugging into those things to sound the same.
That's good.
It's really hard to argue, man. I'm not plugging into all these boxes to sound the same.
Right.
And, I think that my take on that in summary is that the right buffers, if you're playing on a big stage and you have a big cable run, you can't do it without a buffer. You're going to lose level and you're going to lose signal, and it's going to totally. Your amp's not going to work the same way, et cetera, blah blah blah. I know a lot of people aren't doing that these days. They're running into Axe Effects and Ableton and doing all that stuff. I know you guys are not props. Yeah. And it doesn't work the same way because you're using largely controllers, and those controllers they're 70 buffers in them or whatever.
Right. It took me a while when I got the gig with Miranda at Lambert. It was the first gig I'd ever had with ears.
Oh, really?
And digital.
No ears with Emmy and.
No, we had monitors. It was.
I guess like a bluegrassier thing.
I loved it. It was just kind of
acoustic instruments or whatever.
More just sort of, we had 2 or 3 techs with us, and that was it. So it wasn't even. It just production wise wasn't as big of an operation at that time. And that took a while. Like that ear crispiness and the change from venue to venue, right? Of wherever you are physically and you're using RF is never going to be the same as where you were the night before, right? Even if it still sounds good, it's different, right? That took
never really considered the color of the RF.
It took me a while. I mean, I'm just assuming maybe
that makes total sense. I never considered. But
from
that.
night to night, I always felt like, when I first joined, am I doing something different? Is something off? Do I have more earwax in my ear from the Pilsner I had last night or something?
Barometric pressure.
Yes, but I think it's just, you're using however many channels of wireless, right? And you've got this little Shure piece of metal that's sending all those RFs, and it's fun. It's great. I love being able to move around, and it's a blast.
And the sound doesn't change
anywhere.
I mean, it does
else, but it's a little different. So, all that to say, I mean, like, yeah.
Well, and
it's like in a recipe when somebody says a teaspoon. Do you ever put a teaspoon?
I mean,
of something.
It depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah, if you're baking, true.
Baking for sure, and if it's something like
it can mean a lot of different things, right?
Cumin or something like eyeballing something like cumin can get you in trouble. It's really easy to overuse them strong stuff. My final thought would be that getting used to the ears thing and the color of the RF, it's just another version of dialing in your rig to the room on wedges. So
totally.
You have to do different things. You got to figure out what those are at first.
Yep.
I've only played a couple of gigs in venues the size that you guys are doing all the time, and there can definitely be a healthy, what's the word? A healthy list of things that can go wrong and sending signals long ways, whether it's down a cable to a rig or your ears or whatever.
Lights can affect things. Yeah,
absolutely. Dirty power, old buildings, just whatever, everything. So now for a more serious question: tacos or pizza?
Oof.
Again, I should say that there's no wrong answers.
Yeah, pizza. Just gonna go for it. Nothing like it.
Live your life, bro.
A good crispy crust, some tangy sauce, solid cheese.
I have
tacos. I mean, I love Mexican food. I can eat it.
I have a sperm of the moment question.
Yeah. Sperm of the
shitty tacos or shitty pizza? Because shitty pizza is the worst. Nothing makes me feel as bad as shitty pizza.
Do you ever use flour tortillas in tacos, though?
I made my own flour tortillas that I'm going to prepare tacos with for you in a little bit. I use flour tortillas a lot. Mine don't make you feel like the ones you buy from the store.
I love it.
I used to make
I'd probably still take shitty
ones.
Pizza.
Well, hey, love your life, bro. Love your
Isn't there something about there's a finality to the length of the slice, the size, you get to the end. Tacos like 2 bites.
See, I like tacos because I can eat 3 and it feels like I ate a bunch, but I really didn't eat that much.
Yeah, that's true.
From a calorie standpoint. I mean, it's one thing if you're eating like a, barbacoa in a fried flour tortilla.
What do we got to do to get Taco Bell to bring the Mexican pizza back?
Did they get rid of it?
Oh, yeah.
I stopped eating fast food when I moved here pretty much.
And I don't go very often, but if they brought the Mexican pizza back, they'd have lines around the block. What do they do? What do they think?
I don't know. Has Babish done a recipe for one of those? Because if he hasn't, I'm about to do one because I have a cooking YouTube as well.
Man of many talents.
Arguably.
6-string, 5-string, 4-string, tacos,
pizza. I got a couple 10 strings over there.
Don't tell me that.
I didn't say I could play them. I said I had them. Another impossible question: live or session?
Man,
they're incomparable things, but I am asking you to pick.
Golly.
For hypothetical sake.
Me personally, I'm going to say session just because this week on Monday I was doing country demos. On Tuesday, are you familiar with Emmett Otter and the Christmas Jug Band, that musical from I think it stemmed from the Muppets. It was like a hokey not Broadway, but it's like a puppet musical that I was recording the music for, reading notes, reading.
I saw the pictures of your dots.
I posted they were dots, and I read them.
Dots and lines,
that
bro.
That was fun.
I'm just impressed that you can read dots and lines.
I was doing more. Went to school,
I mean, I kind of did.
Yeah.
I can't sight read
today.
anymore.
I was doing more country demos. Friday's more of a rock and roll session. Like the variety of my upbringing in music was always all over the map. I was digging into the band just as heavy as Green Day and Miles Davis and all this stuff.
I love to hear that.
Right?
I really love to hear that.
So to me, being able to do for me personally, it brings me a lot of happiness to sit in on something like, and if I did one thing, it would get really monotonous, right? If I only played country music.
That's what I've always said.
If I only played puppet musicals.
There's so many.
That would be rough. It'd be rough, bro.
Yeah, I mean, unless you were doing puppet musicals written by Jason Segel, I think that'd probably be pretty rough. But
what was that called?
I forget.
Dracula, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was so good.
It was a
Mila Kunis.
A dramedy. Mila Kunis? I think it's Mila.
Is that the second celebrity's name I've gotten wrong?
Yeah, you're 0 for 2, but who's counting?
Getting canceled.
Shit, I had the thought, but I lost it. Doesn't matter. I lost it like it's phone. Remember that time when I wasn't very good at this? I'm going to fix it now because I have written single, cool, or humbucker. I already know the answer because you don't have a single humbucker here.
Right. Single coil.
And I don't really...
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well,
but the humbuckers are great. They're awesome.
They're great, but I find them to be less versatile on bass. And
10% of anything you'll ever play will be cool with a humbucker.
And then people like Craig Young go and prove me wrong.
Right. Yes. You got to have him on that. Have you had him on the show?
No, he won't.
Okay.
He said, I don't have shit to say, but I'll come eat some food. And I said, let me know when, bro.
David Mead, Luxury of Time. Do you know that record?
No.
David Mead, MEAD, Luxury of Time. For the longest time, it wasn't available on like Spotify and stuff. Now it's on Spotify.
Okay.
And it's Chris McHugh and Craig Young. And it is the
I know those
dirtiest,
names.
Just sickest trench digging. I mean, they're underneath the water. They're underneath the ocean.
Is it what you would call
like remember the Titanic when they go
playing?
down in Titanic and they're like way down there and it's dark and murky and there's weird things you've never seen before. They're down there. You see shine a light and there's Chris McHugh. There's Chris McHugh and Craig Young digging ditches in the bottom of the ocean on that record. And it's a great record. There's great songs.
You produced a couple of records for Kelsey Walden.
I did, yeah.
Did Nate Felty play on either of those?
Nate wasn't. These were a while ago, so
okay.
I didn't know Nate back then, but know him now. He's great.
That's my
great
homie.
Player.
He and I played some gigs together,
awesome.
And we do what we have talked about and referred to as grown-ass man rhythm section playing. And it's like he and I are both very capable of like being notey and still making something feel good. But with this particular artist that we were playing for, Dan Smalley, it's like this kind of like rootsy, swampy, what I would call like Waylon and Merle on ketamine.
Yeah.
Kind of, I mean, it's not like druggy music, but it's just like this swampy ass thing. And
love that.
He's like doing he's channeling Steve Jordan, and I'm trying to play just like half note, half note, and just but like digging trenches, bro. There ain't nothing like it, and it takes, as Nate says, a grown ass man to play like that, because in the moment playing more often feels better.
Who's the name of the artist again that you're
Dan
with?
Smalley.
Does he ever, when you're doing that, does he ever like just give you like, I don't know if I can do this on the camera, but does he ever give you one of these?
Oh yeah. Especially with like Nate.
Any version of that is
that's what you want.
It's not the paycheck. It's that.
Well, and we find
there's a fine line. I don't know what you're doing, but I love it. From an artist.
Boo, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but Boo's let me listen to board tapes from rehearsals and stuff.
Yeah.
And the first thing that two things I thought immediately. One is he's not playing those exactly like the record, and it feels better because, and I've long been a proponent of, records don't always translate live, especially in a giant room. There's a lot of really notey bass lines, and that shit gets lost. And sounds, and not only does it get lost, but it takes away from the trench, if you will. But the other thing was, holy shit, that bass sounds so good. And he asked you what, because I was like, ask Mike what he's doing. Tell me what's on. I want to know what's going on in there. That he told me about this setup, and then he said that just a Countryman live, and I was
Silver Countryman,
son of a bitch. So you don't use this live?
I tried it, and it's I describe it as a very unsexy DI, right?
Gear and beer.
So I was going to ask you if you use compression live, but here I see this compressor on your board. Do you keep it on all the time?
The Cali 76 pretty much on all the time, and it's very a light setting. Like I've got there's a dry output and then the output of the pedal. The dry output, which is just through, is pretty much always hotter. It might be 2 o'clock, and
you're running parallel compression.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't like.
But man, it means
the compression on this board is not parallel, and it's too much, and it totally changes my.
Well, ideally, I'd have
level.
If there's 22 songs in the set, I'd literally have 22 compressed. You know what I mean? Like that would be ridiculous.
Sure.
I would never do that. But attack and release times are so subject to a tempo.
Totally.
Right, and part
in the flow of the song. Yeah.
So I kind of try to just find a really solid middle, just a little support that's loving what I'm doing, but not.
I find it most helpful personally.
Not the first thing you hear.
And I don't run, since I just don't have a parallel compression setup on the board. But like when I do use that compression, I really only find it useful live, and I'm hesitant to use compression anyway, just because of so much color a lot of the time. But I find it really useful in ballads or anything where I need long and loud, or like slap stuff, which I do less and less of. It seems like every year, but
right on.
You're obviously not doing any slapping.
I don't do any slapping. Yeah, I would not.
Not
I have
on
a
Miranda's
lot of numbers
gig
that I would give you. If you needed some slap guys, I'll give them your number.
That's what Anthony Jackson did.
Yeah, right. I heard that. Yeah, he'd
give you a card for somebody else and say, "Call this. I'm gone, baby."
Yeah.
And then he goes and plays the shit out of bass somewhere else. So, jazz or precision?
Precision. Yeah, no doubt. I have one.
Care to elaborate?
I sold a 70s jazz bass that I had that was great bass. I just never played it. And then I have one that's like the Flea, that shell
deluxe.
pink that I really like. Yeah.
It's a deluxe, right?
Well, no, it's a road worn. Not road worn, but it's similar.
One of those.
Artist series. They did Made in Mexico, and it's a great bass, and I love it. But for me personally, I just always felt, maybe it's because my natural tendency is not as tubby, so the P bass lends itself more to my style playing, whereas when I'm playing jazz bass, I feel real thin.
I feel like I have bright fingers too.
Thin, right? I don't know. But for years and years and years, people have always said it's a P bass town, or Nashville, but I think even more than that, it's like when you listen to great rock, not only country is the P bass like the thing, but
certain eras for sure.
Rock and roll was a lot of P basses, and
100%.
A lot of humbuckers too, a lot of Gibsons, but man, wow, I'm really blanking. Maybe you can help me. Elton John, the English bass player who was on all of that. Great stuff. Maybe we can look it up and
tag it in the show notes.
Put it later. But I mean, that kind of just cut. It just, yeah.
Do you have a favorite pedal?
The pork loin. Way huge pork loin, soft clip injection. Enough grit to stand out, but not be too gnarly.
They're really great sounding.
They're really great.
Okay, now we move to more reflective.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite venue? Whether it's just an experience one time or a place that you go back to each time?
I've only been there once. I mean, Ryman and Red Rocks are pretty hard to beat.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to play the Ryman a few times in a lot of different situations, and it's just magic to be there, right?
It's in the walls,
to go see
man.
shows. I saw Bob Dylan there. I saw Oasis at the Ryman in 2006.
I saw Bill Burr at the Ryman.
Hey, yes. Yes.
Twice, as a matter of fact.
Love it. Talk about a podcaster. Wow.
Monday morning podcast.
Wow.
On Mondays
Thursday
and Thursdays.
Afternoon for Monday morning podcast. But there was, I got the, first I started touring with Rodney Crowell in 2014. 2015 or 16, they had auditions for him and Emmy tour, which was the second. They did something Moon. Forget the name of the record, but the first record. Then they did another record called The Traveling Kind. So I did the Traveling Kind tour with Emmylou Harris, Rodney Crowell. Got the audition. Most nervous week of my life was after the audition. Rodney came out of the audition and he said, "You got the gig unless Michael Rhodes wants it," and walked away from me. And I said, "Okay, cool. Like, I don't know how to take that." I didn't hear from management for 2 weeks. I literally, my mind was so crazy. I remember running through a red light, and my girlfriend at the time was like with me. She's like, "Mike, what are you doing? Stop!" Like, I'm sorry. My mind's just like, I'm
lost in here.
I want to tour with Rodney and Emmy, and I don't know if I have the gig or not. Anyway, I got the gig. We went to, and the tour was great. Rehearsals went great. One of the first legs was Australia, and we're in Melbourne at I want to say it's the Palais Theater, Palais.
Okay.
And
That's how I would
there
say
was
that.
something about that gig that just, like, from start to finish, packed house, and
the Australians are kind people.
They really are. They're beautiful people. We had beautiful time there, and I don't know what it was. It was just like everything was. Yeah,
one of those
moments.
Yeah, man.
I'll never forget that feeling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like that. I even get little tingles.
Was,
I wasn't there. I don't even know how you felt in that moment.
It's cool, man.
But just the fact that you had one is awesome, and I respect that. That I just reminded myself of something that I've also talked about on this podcast at least 6 times. Are you familiar with the Royal Tenenbaums?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So there's the quote where Owen Wilson's character is talking about the music of Sting, for instance. He's made a lot of it over the years, and I don't listen to it, but the fact that he's making it, I respect that. Or I never get the quote right, but it's something like that. It's like what? I don't know. That popped into my head.
So good.
One of my favorite questions. A staple of guitar and bass and music mags for decades. You have 3 choices for Desert Island Records.
I can pick 3.
You get 3 because
nice.
1 is impossible.
That's nice.
I refuse 1.
I love that. The first one that comes to mind, maybe a lot of people say this, is Bob Dylan, Time Out of Mind.
No one said that yet.
Really?
I
standing in the doorway crying.
I haven't said that my favorite Steely Dan song is Time Out of Mind before, but not Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan's 96 or 94, that record.
I don't know it. I'll listen to it. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Man. The whole thing is like this
I love his music.
Dream. It's like you're having a really great dream that also is sad, but it's great. Like there's sadness in that dream, and it's not working out like you want it to, but it's still great. And there's great moments in it too, and joyous moments, but it's mostly just sad. So that's the Desert Island record.
You get 2 more. You're allowed to just choose 1 if that's what you would prefer to do.
The band. across the great divide.
I was gonna say the night. That's the one that when someone says the band, I think the night they burned Old Dixie down. That was the first band song that I ever heard where I was like, "What is this?" And somebody was like, "It's the band," and I said, "What band?"
Right, the band. Being from Arkansas, and the Ronnie Hawkins, and knowing their history there, and that's really special. Okay, that's two.
Michael Rinne, you've got one final choice. What will it be? Before God, America, and everyone.
Man, I don't know why it's popped in my mind, but I have this old recording of Opus 115, the Brahms Clarinet Quintet. That's some random Eastern European string quartet and a clarinetist whose name I don't know, but that piece of music and that specific recording. I have the vinyl of it. It's a great
combination.
I go back to it a lot in my life. Like sometimes I just find myself like, oh, I want to listen to some, you don't listen to vinyl all the time, but sometimes I'm like, some people do. I don't. Sometimes I'm like,
I have one record and it just sits right over there. Matt Krause gave it to me.
All right. Nice.
I need to get a record player. I need to get a record player.
Yeah. So I go back to this recording and I don't even know who it is, but Opus 115, the Clarinet Quintet that Johannes Brahms wrote, Brahms, I believe, or maybe it's just Brahms. That sounds more right. That sounds more right. There's no E. Opus 115. That's a beautiful piece of music. Even if, no matter what recording you're going to listen to, it's going to be great.
I miss classical music. I did classical music in high school and in college, both singing and at one point dabbled in viola as a younger man and trombone. Yeah, same. I never considered it in a desert island record scenario, but there's a piece of music by Ravel called, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but La Coupe de Tambour, Teaumbarn, tambourine.
Okay.
Tambourine. Or tambourine. Maybe I'm spelling that wrong. I'll find that too. There's a solo piano, and then there's a symphony version of the same piece of music.
If jazz peaked at bebop,
classical peaked at Ravel.
It peaked at romantic music,
Sure.
Yeah.
Ravel is definitely my favorite all-time composer. Speaking of Royal Tenenbaums, movement number 2 of the string quartet is the DVD menus, as well as there's many parts of that second movement throughout that, which it's just a fantastic piece of music. Okay, so I have 3 questions left. One, and remember when I said I'll give you 3 choices instead of 1? Well, this time you only have 1.
Okay.
A desert. So there's 2 categories, 1 choice each. Let's say you're stuck on Session Island.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You get, or let's say you're stuck in Music Performance Island.
Okay.
And that means studio and live. You get 1 instrument and you get 1 other piece of gear. It doesn't have to be an amp. It doesn't have to be anything, but it can't be a second instrument.
That's good.
Maybe it's a 93 Mexican jazz squire.
Do I need to own them?
No.
Oh. Well, the sort of...
You're certainly welcome to.
Yeah.
Pick one of your favorite personal instruments.
Right.
But maybe
there was this American bass maker, right, in the 1800s, that it was really when the first time that, like, Christianity was, obviously being established while the country was being established, but churches couldn't afford big organs, right?
Right.
So they could afford, it's kind of the moment when pianos were becoming more commonplace, or organs that didn't have the big bass pipes.
Not pipe organs, like reed organs.
Yeah, they're like reed organs, or, smaller organs.
Chamber
and they needed, churches needed low end, right? And there's this one bass maker named Abraham Prescott, who was making double basses in Connecticut back in the 1840s and 30s. And if you listen to Bill Evans' trio records, Scott LaFaro, the too soon departed, who passed away at a young age from a car accident, those early Bill Evans records is Scott LaFaro playing a Prescott. And check that bass tone out. So if I could have one instrument in my life, it would be a Prescott. They're like $100,000, or whatever. I mean, you can probably get one for like
80.
A deal. You can get one for a deal at 40, but the ones that are like, I mean, they don't come available very often.
If you find a good one, you don't let it go.
A lot of guys in symphony orchestras who only have one bass, that's what they play or whatever. So a Prescott.
That's dope. I'm going to...
And maybe a B-15. I don't know. It'd be useful. I could heat if I was on a desert island, I'd need to heat my food. Little tubes.
That's fair.
Might be able to put a piece of toast.
You can put a banana leaf over the top of those tubes. If you had any electricity,
I don't know if you'd have any electricity on it.
Well, we're not. Island, yeah, but we're not on an island. We're on Music Island.
Yeah, there you go.
And those are two great choices.
Prescott through a B-15.
I'm into it. I think that sounds like a fucking great signal chain.
Good.
So we're down to the final two questions.
Okay. Do we have time?
We do.
Great.
What is the professional...
If anybody makes it to the end of this, by the way, listening to me talk,
they're going to make it to the end.
I owe you a beer.
They're going to make it to the end.
If I ever see you out or you don't drink, I'll buy you a sandwich.
They're going to come see you play.
Chips.
I'm going to link your website. They're going to go check out your credits. They're going to go listen to your...
That'd be cool.
Your playing. They're going to come see you with the pride of Lindale, Texas.
That's right. Fantastic.
What is the professional accomplishment that you are most proud of?
Oh, man. That's a deep question, man.
I said it would get a little reflective. That's about as deep as we're getting. That's what she said.
Woo. Hey.
Sorry.
I don't have anything professional like that. But I've I guess it's that I've I know I'm not like an old man or anything, but I've been in Nashville. I've been in Nashville 15 years, and
that ain't no small chunk,
right? I know a lot of people, and I've been fortunate enough to file my end of the year Uncle Sam tax return with the government as a professional musician since I graduated college in 2010, and that to me is, and a lot of times it was 15 gigs a week, 3 church services, 4 bar gigs, every private event I could play, and then playing songwriter rounds for like nothing, playing with any songwriter that would want me to play in their showcase or whatever. I'd just go do it, just play with, yes, cool, great, yes, just like no life, no girlfriend for a while, a long time, just like, I'm going to do this.
See, I'm doing that, but I'm lucky with a patient girlfriend.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love it. And it's not that I want to say no ever now, but I have to say no unfortunately sometimes because I can't, do everything or just, don't get called for certain things. But I guess being able to have a good, 2021, a good 10 years, a solid 10 years, solid decade of telling Uncle Sam I'm not sitting at a desk.
Bass in your face.
Against that.
All over the place.
Yeah.
My friend Billy Freeman recently said, is like, you have to know how to say no because you have to stay mentally healthy as well as physically healthy.
It's really important. It's a hard one.
Jaded is a hard thing to come back from.
Well, and just your well-being is you're already starting with the odds stacked against you, right?
But it makes you bitter
when you're going to eat.
Or at least that's what I've found, and not necessarily myself, because I've seen it so manifested in other people where I'm like, no, that ain't going to be me.
Totally, man.
And
your words have power too, man. I'll 100%. Say that. Like what you put out there about yourself you'll reap what you sow there, and I'm not saying you need to go tell everybody you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You don't need to do that.
Please don't do that.
But just internally, like knowing that your music side of you is only informed by your human side of you, right? Nobody has some secret that I know has some secret connection to some great musical God that they're praying to in their closet.
Sure.
You're only going to play music.
Not everybody gets to be Robert Johnson.
From yourself, right? Yeah, exactly. Or Eric Clapton, king of the Delta variant.
Man.
Is that terrible? That's terrible.
No, because...
He played here last night. I wish I would have seen it.
Yeah, same.
It was amazing.
It's funny that you say that because it is especially poignant. A friend of mine, Carl, did a podcast, which his is coming out next week. We did one, lost all the video, redid it.
Still on. Good.
Oh,
redid it. No, it's good.
Okay. That says 21, not 27. And we filmed a little jam before, and in the audio that I was editing together today, we called the jam the Mississippi Blues Delta variant. And I got several laugh out louds by myself earlier.
So good.
So no, that's I would say no. You were not wrong to say that.
Good.
Thank you, thank you for being on my level.
But all that to say, your human side of you, take care of that side because it'll only inform
musician or otherwise. Take care of that side of you.
Inform the rest, right? Yeah,
100%. You can only be as good as you feel.
And people aren't listening to music to feel shitty. Typically,
I think that's arguable.
Typically,
I love music that makes me sad.
Even if they are, they don't want you to feel. They want you to be. They're paying money to come see you play. It's like it's a joyous thing. That's an accomplishment.
Sure, I see what you're saying. I just really love melancholy music.
I know, me too.
It's great. It's emotive. It's the tingles, the hair stand, the goosebumps. Michael,
Feels.
I have one final question for you.
Bring it.
This is, my girlfriend advised me to get rid of this question because it's too hard. I rebuke that and make it the final question. We're going to call this question the King's Court. You're in the King's Court.
All right.
You have to choose Albert, BB, or Freddie.
I saw BB in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
If you want to choose King's X, I will accept that.
Cersei Lannister. No, not her.
Not House Lannister, I'm afraid.
I saw BB King when I was like 15. It was one of the best things ever in my life. But I'm going to go with Albert simply because of the record Lovejoy, because I love that record. It's got Doug Dunn all over it.
It's hard to argue with his guitar playing, and I'm a big fan of all three.
Yeah.
I've only ever seen BB. I've seen BB a couple times. I saw BB at the first Crossroads in Dallas in 2002 or 2004, whenever it was.
Think he'll ever do that again?
I mean, BB won't.
No, but sorry, Eric. Derek,
honestly, he was one of the few people that's had like a severe reaction to his what's it called, vaccine, and he lost all feeling in his extremities for a while. But I mean, obviously that's better. He just did a show here, so he's doing all right. But he's talked about he thought it was the end of touring. So we'll see about Eric. But I once saw B.B. King on that same stage with Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, John Mayer, Derek Trucks, and Jimmy Vaughn, and they were all five.
Willie Weeks?
No.
Nathan
Actually,
East?
I don't remember.
Maybe Nathan East?
I cannot remember.
Wow. It's amazing.
It was a house band scenario for sure, so I don't know.
It's pretty cool.
It was very cool. I saw ZZ Top that day too.
Man. What's that clip where Derek Trucks and John Mayer and somebody else sitting there it's a photo shoot for a magazine cover.
Oh.
But they all have small amps and they're all playing and somebody's just taking like a phone recording or something. and it's John Mayer and Derek Trucks and somebody else, and I can't remember the third person, but Derek plays some stuff that literally makes both John Mayer and the other guy stand up and walk away. Like they put their guitar down.
I've heard Derek Trucks do that a lot.
It's a great YouTube. Since you're already on YouTube,
I'm going to link hopefully. That too. So I'll tell you what, we got a lot of links for this episode.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having me. Oh.
We'll do both.
Perfect.
I really enjoyed this podcast, and I appreciate you taking your time and come all the way out here to.
So glad to Boo hooked us up.
Same.
Thanks to Boo Massey.
Shout out to my guru, Mr. Boo. You can find his guest suite at the end of the hall. So Michael Rinne from Fort Smith, Arkansas, now Nashville, Tennessee. I'll put a link to his website. You can go check out all of his credits if you have a couple of afternoons to kill. And you can find him out anytime you see Miranda play. Are you playing with Pistol Annie's when they're doing stuff? We
don't really have any fall stuff coming up. So, yeah, next year, though, Miranda will be back at it. Yeah.
Well, go check it out. If you haven't seen him, not many people out there kill it like they kill it. So... what is it? That was the Hot Ones thing. So now we're going to roll out the red carpet for you, Michael, and tell this camera what you've got going on in your life.
That was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
I watched like 3 of those yesterday.
Love that.
So anyway, you don't have to say anything, but I was trying to remember what he said. So thanks to my guest today. Make sure and hit the old subscribe and hit the bell and follow us on Instagram and all the stuff. And tune in next week for another episode of Gear and Beer.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Gear and Beer podcast. Make sure and subscribe and turn on notifications for our channels, and if you haven't already, follow our Instagram and YouTube channels. We truly appreciate your support and ask that you please tell anyone you know whom you think might be interested in our podcast about Gear and Beer to help us grow and continue bringing in great guests from around the industry and beyond. Thanks again, and until the next episode.